Now, Kwame, so straight to the point, I mean, to the topic, the historical relationship of South Africa and US has not been that, there was no trust. There's a distrust from by the ANC of US's because of its historical reality, supporting apartheid regime during that time. And then there are a number of developments that we can talk about that happened recently that might have led to this. There are different things. We know that South Africa is not really the favorite country right now to the US, but now to really unfold that historical and reality, it will help us to understand where this problem, where this tension stems from. So what has been like the historical background of their relationship between these two countries?
Thank you, Mahlet. Actually, you have to admire the audacity of the United States on one side. Actually, on a serious note, I say this on a very serious note. You have to admire the audacity with which the United States comes and tries to push its narrative. Historically, South Africa, when it was fighting against apartheid, because the apartheid regime was terrorizing the African people after taking over the country, the land, economically, everything. South Africa fought against this apartheid, which was a continuation of colonialism, from the 1960s until, 1994, when President Mandela was elected as the new president. But in all this process, the only people who were on the side of South Africa during the liberation struggle, the liberation movement, the people who were on the side of the liberation movement was only Africa, countries like Cuba, countries like Russia, which was the Soviet Union during that period. So these were the countries which were on the side of the struggle of the of the liberation movement, the ANC and the Pan-African Congress. On the other side, Pan-African Congress, of course, is still existent. Of Mongaliso, Robert Mongaliso Sobukwe. I think we will come and talk about that another day. But the United States and Europe and its allies were never on the side of liberation, actually. Even though today they paint themselves as champions of liberty. But historically, the United States, when you look at all liberation movements, true liberation movements, real liberation movements across the globe, the United States has never been on the right side of history, or it has never been on the justice side of history. It has never been on the right side of history. And that is what you see that molded, this is what molded the relationship of the South African government. Once the liberation movement gained the power, ANC came to power, it never went out of the psyche of the liberation leaders. This is what molded the liberation struggle. This is what molded the relationship between the ANC, as we see it in South Africa, and the United States, and actually all the other European allies, because majority of the European countries also supported the apartheid regime. And this was when you go back to, you look at people like President Reagan, in broad daylight, those people who want to understand a little bit, even you can go and watch that movie, which was played by, that movie is called The Butler. The movie was played by Forrest Whitaker. And that movie, in it, you could see that people like President Reagan, when they came to tell him that the United States needs to be on the right side of history by supporting the liberation movement in South Africa, because the apartheid regime was so brutal. It was killing innocent people. It was killing women. It was killing innocent men. It was killing students who were fighting for dignity and their rights. President Reagan went ahead to say that he does not care if the bill, if the resolution passes in Congress, which supports the liberation movement. He said that he will veto it. That is what President Reagan said during that time in the 1980s, 1989, as we were progressing and approaching the 1990s. So President Reagan decided to say that he will veto it if it passes through Congress, a bill which we want to support. So this is what molded the relationship between South Africa and the United States. So when we see what is happening today, that there is that friction, even people like Secretary of State Blinken actually, mentioned it a few months ago and said that our relationship with South Africa, is tricky, is fragile, because unfortunately the United States has been on the wrong side of history with the support of the apartheid regime. But it did not stop there. The United States has been supporting brutal dictators all over, even in our African continent. You remember the killing of, Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba in the Congo. The United States went ahead to support the brutal dictator Mobutu Sese Seko. Right now, even right now, we are not even talking about not only history, but even right now, we see that the United States is supporting Israel in killing of the Palestinians today, just today. So to put it out there, the stand of South Africa has been the African stand, and has been the position that we have to take care of human rights in every capacity, regardless of the size of the nation. And this, Madame Naleda Pandor has mentioned it on numerous cases, that regardless of the size of the nation, it should be respected. It should have all the rights. We will not accept and we will not agree that a nation, because it is very big, it will go around bullying, other smaller nations, and it will claim because they have financial and economic power, their economy is huge, then we will deny the other people because they don't have money, they don't have that economic power. We'll deny them their rights, their, right to self-determination, their right to choice. Like right now, what is happening is interference with South Africa's, right to choice of partners across the globe, the right to choice of cooperation with other countries across the globe. South Africa has a right to have its own, choice of partners across the globe. It can choose Russia, it can choose China. It is a member of BRICS, for Christ's sake. So that is the friction which you are seeing right now, that the relationship historically, South Africa has maintained a position that is human rights friendly in action. And actually that goes on to all the other parts of or majority of the other parts of the world. When you're talking about the whole of Africa, we are talking about China, you are talking about Russia. These countries have maintained practically, they have maintained a position that has favored liberation and freedom, while the United States and Europe has maintained a position, that position rhetorically, not in action. They just talk about it, but in action, they support, the brutality, the apartheid regimes, they support dictators. That is what they do, whether in South America, even when you are talking about South America, in Latin America, all over Nicaragua, Chile, Haiti. When you look at all these countries, it is the same position which the United States has. So it believes that the only way for it to achieve its objectives is to bully. And so this is what we are seeing that is happening in South Africa, that it is trying to bully South Africa. But South Africa has also stood its position and say, we will not be bullied, and you will not tell us what to do, in our own land. Yeah, so this is what we are seeing that is happening there.
Thank you very much, Kwame, for that historical background. We really needed. Sometimes we take things for granted. Oh, yes, they didn't have a good relationship during apartheid. Just the fact that because U.S. supported apartheid, but no, it's just deeper than that. And then it's important, of course, to remind us what happened elsewhere in the continent as well doesn't make U.S. a right. The right state or the right friendly country to the continent, because it always consciously or unconsciously has chosen to be on the wrong side of history. So that was really important. Thank you very much. Now